I stood in my kitchen, the air thick with the aroma of rosemary and garlic, when my world tilted on its axis. It was a sunny Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that should have felt warm and inviting. Yet, as I stirred the ingredients for our family lunch, a nagging feeling crept up my spine. My son, Jake, had been distant lately, and I felt a precursor of something dark looming in the corners of my mind. "Mom, can we talk?" he said, breaking the stillness. I glanced up, surprised not only by his tone, but also by the look in his eyes, a mixture of concern and righteousness that made my heart race. "Sure, honey, what's on your mind?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, but my anxiety flared when he added, "I think it's time we have a serious conversation about Mark and Lauren." My stomach twisted. I had my suspicions about my husband, Mark, and his close relationship with our daughter-in-law, Lauren, but to hear Jake mention it sent shivers down my spine. I felt trapped in a whirlwind, a storm ready to unleash its fury. "Apologize now or leave," Jake said, his voice unwavering. "I can't be around people who hurt this family." I held my breath, waiting for Mark to respond, but he just sat there, his fork frozen mid-air. For a moment, I thought I might faint. This was all too much. I could feel the edges of my reality fraying, and I needed to know the truth. The next day, I made an impulsive decision. I had seen enough whispers and shared glances between Mark and Lauren to know there was more to their relationship than met the eye. I set up a hidden camera in our living room behind a potted plant where I hoped it wouldn't be noticed. The thought of spying felt wrong, but I was desperate for answers. As much as I hated to admit it, my instincts were screaming that something was off. Weeks went by, and each Tuesday felt like a countdown to an impending disaster. It was the day Lauren would come over for her weekly visit. I watched the footage unfold, holding my breath as the minutes turned into hours. And then, there it was, a scene that would change everything. Lauren entered our apartment, her presence too familiar, too comfortable. I felt my pulse quicken. What were they talking about when they thought I wasn't watching? As I continued to observe, my heart sank further. She left behind an envelope, and just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. The envelope was key, I was sure of it, but my heart raced with fear as I thought of what it could contain. Secrets, betrayals, the very threads of my marriage unraveling right before my eyes. Each Tuesday, I became a detective in my own home, cataloging every interaction, every subtle touch, and every shared laugh that pierced my heart like daggers. With each passing day, my anxiety morphed into a burning desire for control, to reclaim the narrative that felt stolen from me. "Mom, you need to talk to Dad," Jake insisted one evening as I paced the kitchen like a caged animal. He had taken on the role of protector, but the thought of confronting Mark felt like standing on the edge of a precipice. "I will," I told him, but inside, I knew I needed more proof before I could lay my cards on the table. Eventually, I decided to reach out to a close friend, Sarah, who had walked a similar path. Over coffee, I spilled my fears and findings. "Olivia, you deserve to know the truth. You shouldn't be afraid of facing him," she reassured me. I felt a flicker of strength igniting within me, but it was tempered by the fear of what I might discover. The turning point came when I finally confronted Mark, armed with the evidence I had gathered, my confidence bolstered by the support from friends. "I know about the envelope, and I know about you and Lauren," I said, my voice steady despite the tempest inside. I took a deep breath and sat at my kitchen table, staring blankly at the remnants of Sunday lunch. The aromatic scent of roasted chicken lingered in the air, but it did little to comfort me. My mind was racing, grappling with the weight of what I had learned and what I needed to do. Jake's confrontation echoed in my head. He was right to be worried. Something was terribly wrong. Determined to gather evidence, I replayed the footage from the hidden camera. With each passing day, my heart sank deeper into the pit of despair. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing my grip on everything that mattered to me. A few days later, I spotted Lauren entering our apartment on a Tuesday afternoon. She had a nervous energy about her, glancing over her shoulder as she slipped inside, unaware of the silent witness recording her every move. What struck me most was the familiar envelope tucked under her arm. I watched as she pulled it out, her fingers trembling slightly, and placed it on the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I realized that it was the same envelope I had seen before, the one that mysteriously vanished each week. I clenched my fists in frustration. What was in it? What secret did it hold? Later that night, I clung to my phone, contemplating whether to confront Mark or keep quiet. My fears bubbled to the surface as I crushed the envelope in my hands, imagining all the possibilities inside it. But I needed proof. I had to know for sure before I made any rash decisions. I decided to investigate more. The next couple of weeks were a blur of anxiety and determination. I painstakingly collected every piece of evidence I could, more photographs, snippets of conversations, and timestamps of Lauren's visits. Each piece of information weighed heavily on my heart, but with it also came a strange sense of control. I was uncovering the truth, and that made me feel stronger than I had in a long time. Olivia, my friend Carla, said one afternoon when I finally confided in her, "You deserve to know the truth, whatever it is. But you need to be ready for it." "I am ready," I responded, my voice steadier than I felt. "I really am. I can't keep living in this uncertainty." Carla placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Just be careful. You're walking a fine line." That made me feel even more resolute. I had been walking on eggshells for too long, and now I was ready to break free from the cycle of doubt and insecurity. I spent my next few days researching divorce laws, gathering resources, and building my case. I even consulted a lawyer whose stern but compassionate demeanor filled me with confidence. She looked at me and said, "You've got this, Olivia. We can make this work." Finally, the day came when I faced Mark. I had my evidence neatly organized, ready to confront him with the truth. We sat across from each other in the living room, the tension palpable. My heart pounded as I spoke the words I had rehearsed in my head countless times. "Mark, I know about you and Lauren," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "I've seen the way she comes and goes. I have evidence." His face turned pale, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Olivia, you're mistaken. You don't understand what's really happening." "Stop lying to me," I cried, the volume of my voice surprising even myself. "You think I was going to be naive forever? I've watched you both, and I've had enough." He stood up abruptly, his arrogance pushing through. "You're out of your mind. You don't own this house, and you can't just throw me out." I took a deep breath, feeling steadier than I had in what felt like ages. "Actually, I do own this house, Mark. After everything I've learned, I'm changing the locks. You can leave." For the first time, I felt a rush of power. I was taking control of my life, no more feeling like a prisoner in my own home. I could almost see the relief wash over me as I realized I was no longer shackled by uncertainty or fear. After that confrontation, things began to shift. The court date was set, and I gathered every shred of evidence. I sat at the kitchen table, the warm sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow on the worn wood. My heart raced as I recalled the moments after my confrontation with Mark. The silence that hung between us was heavy, filled with unspoken words, accusations, and my determination to reclaim my life. I needed to take control, and I felt a sudden surge of clarity. I wasn't just a victim, I was a woman with power. "Where did you get that idea, Olivia?" Mark had asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "You're being paranoid." I could still hear his words echo in my mind, as if they were meant to undermine me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, the cold surface grounding me. "Stop pretending everything is fine," I shot back, my voice steady. "I know what I saw." Mark's face twisted in annoyance, but I pressed on. "You and Lauren meeting every Tuesday, exchanging those envelopes. I'm done playing your games. I know about the affair." His expression shifted, a mix of anger and something more sinister, perhaps regret. But I was resolute. "Apologize now or leave," I added, my heart pounding at my own conviction. To my surprise, he stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snapped. "You've lost your mind." As he stormed out of the kitchen, I felt a strange mixture of fear and relief. I had taken the first step towards asserting my independence. I was done being the silent partner in our marriage. I had the evidence, and it was time to act. The next few days were a blur of emotions and decisions. I called my friends for support, each voice on the line a lifeline pulling me back to solid ground. Sarah, my closest friend, listened intently, her responses reassuring. "Olivia, you're stronger than you think," she said one afternoon. I could almost hear the warmth in her smile. "You're doing this for yourself. You deserve happiness. But my resolve wasn't without its challenges. The reality of what I was facing loomed large. I had considered moving out or even disappearing from the life I had built with Mark. But deep down, I knew that wasn't a solution. I had to stand my ground. In the following weeks, I met with a lawyer, a calm woman named Julia, who seemed to understand my turmoil. She reviewed my collected evidence with a keen eye, validating my concerns. "You have a solid case, Olivia," she assured me. "With proof of infidelity, you'll have leverage in negotiations." Each session with Julia built my confidence. I learned about my rights, how to navigate the legal system, and the importance of documenting every detail, every interaction. The legal terms felt foreign, yet they began to empower me, replacing the insecurities that once consumed me. One evening, after another long conversation with Julia, I returned home feeling lighter, as if a weight I hadn't acknowledged had been lifted. I walked through the front door, taking in the familiar surroundings. The house felt different now. It was mine, not just a shared space with Mark. In that moment, I made a decision. I would change the locks. This house, our home, had been a source of pain, a reminder of betrayal. Changing the locks would symbolize my new beginning, a boundary I was setting for myself. I arranged for a locksmith the very next day. As the old locks were replaced, I felt a tide of strength washing over me. I was reclaiming my territory, asserting my right to feel safe. The locksmith, a kind woman named Carol, chatted easily as she worked. "You're doing the right thing, dear," she said, her voice warm and reassuring. "It's important to feel secure in your own home." Her words resonated deeply. I nodded, grateful for her kindness. As she finished, I felt a sense of finality. I was no longer merely reacting. I was actively shaping my future. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves and determination. I wore a simple but elegant dress that made me feel empowered. Sarah sat beside me, her presence a calming force amidst my anxiety. When we entered the courtroom, I was struck by its weighty silence. My heart raced as I faced Mark and Lauren, who sat together, a picture of defiance. The day of the court hearing arrived far too quickly for my liking. I sat in my car, parked a few blocks away from the courthouse, staring at the building looming ahead. My heart raced. A mix of fear and anticipation filled me as I recalled the events leading up to this moment. I didn't just want to win, I needed to. For my own peace of mind, "Olivia, you've got this," I whispered to myself, gripping the steering wheel. I took a deep breath and remembered all the evidence I had gathered, the hidden camera footage that revealed Mark's betrayal, and the careful notes I had taken showing Lauren's weekly visits. Each piece strengthened my resolve. As I walked towards the entrance, I spotted my best friend Sarah waiting for me. She wore a calming smile, her presence a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. "Hey," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "Ready for this?" I nodded, even though I felt far from ready. "I just want it to be over. I want to move on." With a reassuring squeeze of my hand, Sarah led me inside. The courtroom was bright and stark, filled with unfamiliar faces. I spotted Mark seated at the front with Lauren by his side, her expression unreadable. Anger bubbled within me, but I forced myself to stay calm. The judge entered, and the room grew silent. I took a seat on the plaintiff's side, my eyes locked on Mark's face. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he had done, to understand that this was my life he had shattered. The proceedings started with the judge asking questions. Mark, looking somewhat disheveled, was first to speak. He tried to maintain an air of confidence, but I could see cracks in his facade. "Your Honor," he began, "this is all a misunderstanding. Lauren and I—" My lawyer, Miss Martinez, interrupted him firmly. "Mr. Thompson, let's stick to the facts. You admit to the affair?" Mark hesitated, glancing at Lauren, who avoided eye contact. "Yes, but it was a mistake." "A mistake that has lasted for months?" Miss Martinez interjected, pulling out one of the photographs I had provided. "As you can see, this was taken last Tuesday when you were meant to be at work. You were in this house with Lauren." The judge looked at Mark expectantly. What do you have to say to that? Sweat dripped down his forehead as he struggled to respond, mumbling something about needing time to think. I felt a surge of power. This was the moment I had fought for, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. Your Honor, I said, my voice steady, I have proof that this affair has not only impacted my marriage, but my entire life. It's not just about Mark and Lauren, it's about the trust that has been utterly destroyed. I handed over the evidence I had collected, the video footage, the notes detailing Lauren's visits, and messages that Mark had sent me that now felt like hollow promises. As I spoke, I noticed Lauren shifting in her seat, her discomfort evident. The judge listened intently, reviewing every piece I provided. After what felt like an eternity, he addressed Mark again. Do you have anything else to add? Mark glanced at me and then back to the judge. I apologize for everything. I didn't mean for it to end like this. Apologies mean little when there's no accountability, Miss Martinez countered. He has shown no respect for Olivia or their marriage. This isn't just a matter of feelings, it's about integrity. As the hearing continued, I felt a sense of control wash over me. I had taken my pain and turned it into strength. The courtroom became a stage where I could finally voice the hurt that had been bottled inside for far too long. It wasn't long before the judge ruled in my favor. The evidence is clear. I grant Olivia sole ownership of the house, and Mark is to pay spousal support during this transition period. Shock washed over Mark's face, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. I glanced at Sarah, who was grinning from ear to ear. My heart swelled with relief and surprising joy. I had done it. I had stood up for myself and reclaimed my life. After the hearing concluded, Sarah and I walked out together. The weight that had burdened me for months began to lift. I sat on the worn-out couch, staring at the walls of my house, now my home. It still had the scent of the lavender air freshener I had bought a few months ago, but it felt heavier than before. The silence was profound, accompanied only by the occasional creak of the house settling. I had fought for this space, fought hard, and now I was alone in it. Yet, for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of peace. Olivia? Sarah called, breaking through my thoughts as she stepped through the front door, a large takeout bag in hand. I brought Thai, your favorite. I managed to smile and stood up. You're a lifesaver. I didn't feel much like cooking today. She placed the bag on the dining table and began to unpack our dinner. How are you holding up? She glanced at me with concern, her blue eyes searching for an answer. I don't know, honestly. This whole process has been draining. I sighed, watching her take out the containers, but inside, I felt lighter. But today was overwhelming. I never imagined I'd actually win in court. She looked up, a grin spreading across her face. You should be proud. You stood up for yourself and showed them who's boss. Yeah, I guess. I shuffled toward the table, feeling the weight of my words. I thought I'd be celebrating, but instead, I feel strange. It's like I've been given this big responsibility, but no clear idea of what to do next. Sarah sat down across from me and leaned in, her expression serious. Olivia, this is a new beginning. You've taken control of your life. You got rid of deadweight. I nodded, but a hint of doubt still lingered. Deadweight. A part of me still misses the good times we had, you know? It's hard to completely let go when you've shared so much. Missing the past doesn't mean you want it back, she reminded me softly. You've been through so much. It's okay to feel mixed emotions. Our conversation shifted as we dug into the vibrant flavors of our meal, but a shadow lingered in the corner of my mind. Every bite felt like a reminder. I was the only one here now. I had fought, I had won, but the cost of that victory was heavy. The image of Mark and Lauren, intertwined in their betrayal, still haunted me. Speaking of mixed emotions, I began, trying to push aside the darkness. I was thinking about what to do with the house. Maybe I should have a little gathering. Sarah perked up. That sounds perfect. Invite the girls over. You can start fresh, clear out old memories, and create new ones. I smiled at the thought. Yeah, I could see that working. Just a comfy night in, good food, and great friends. The idea of surrounding myself with laughter and warmth felt comforting. I could almost picture it. The soft glow of string lights, the chatter of voices, and the smell of fresh popcorn. With renewed determination, I set my fork down. Let's plan it, Sarah. I want this place to feel alive again. She beamed. That's the spirit. We'll turn this house into a home once more. Plus, it'll be good for you to share your story. You'd be surprised how many women might relate.
Yeah, maybe. Sharing my experience felt daunting, yet liberating. I could be a voice for those who felt powerless, just as I had once been. Our conversation meandered into the night, filled with laughter and plans. It felt like a weight lifted, and with each laugh, I reinforced my resolve. I could redefine my life. I could turn this house into a sanctuary, a place where I could rediscover who I was without Mark. As we cleared the table, an unexpected sense of excitement washed over me. I grabbed my phone and began sending out invites. It's time to move forward, I whispered to myself, feeling the empowerment I had fought so hard to regain. With each acceptance to the gathering, the solitude that had once pressed heavily upon my chest eased slightly. I was building a community, reinforcing my strength, and, more importantly, reclaiming my narrative. Tomorrow, I'll change the locks, I said, more to myself than to Sarah. The finality of that thought struck me as significant. It wasn't just about security. It was about asserting my space, my life, my choices. Good idea, she agreed, her voice steady. The sun was setting on my first day of independence, casting soft, warm light through the windows of my home. The echo of the courtroom faded slowly behind me, replaced by the calming sounds of my kitchen, pots clanging, the comforting sizzle of vegetables hitting the pan. Sarah had come over to help transform my space, and the faint smell of garlic filled
The air as we worked together, chopping and laughing. Olivia, I can't believe you stood up to Mark like that, she said, a spark of admiration in her voice. That took guts. I stirred the sauce, feeling the weight of her words. I didn't feel brave at all. It felt like survival. Exactly. And you did it. You took control of your life. Look at you. Sarah clinked her wine glass against mine, the sound ringing with a toast to new beginnings. As I watched her smile, I thought about the last few exhausting months, the doubts, the betrayal, the painful realization that I needed to change my life. I had spent days replaying every moment leading up to that court hearing, the concealed camera, the shocking evidence I'd gathered, and finally, the moment when everything came to light. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked as she tossed a few more herbs into the pot. I mean, really ready. Ready or not, here I come, I replied, forcing a smile to hide my uncertainty. I think I'm starting to understand that my past doesn't have to dictate my future. We moved into the living room, the walls now bare, but soon to be adorned with color and life. It was a blank canvas, much like my own existence. I wasn't just decorating a house, I was creating a home, a sanctuary where I could celebrate my victory and find peace. As Sarah rearranged some throw pillows on the couch, she turned to me, her expression suddenly serious. You know, this place will always be a reminder of what you've overcome. You've defeated them, Olivia. You've taken back your power. I still think I was just lucky, I admitted. What if this new chapter doesn't turn out the way I hope? Then you'll adapt, she said firmly. You're a survivor. Her confidence bolstered my spirits. You're right, I can't let fear dictate my life anymore. With renewed determination, I decided to take action. I had already changed the locks, a tangible sign that I was reclaiming control over my space. No more unexpected visits from Mark or Lauren. The house was mine, and I intended to fill it with joy. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of repairs and renovations. Each small change made me feel more like myself. I began to say no without guilt, learned to enjoy my own company, and revisited hobbies I had put aside for so long. One afternoon, as I was painting a sunny yellow in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. My heart raced as I read it. We need to talk. I want to see the kids. I swallowed hard. Sarah, I called out, my voice slightly shaking. Mark wants to talk. She appeared in the doorway, brush in hand. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to shield the kids from him, but another part, I'm scared he'll try to manipulate me again. Just be firm, she advised. He no longer has the power to control you. That evening, I sat at the table, my pulse racing as I prepared for our meeting. When Mark arrived, the air felt thick with unresolved tension. Hi, Olivia, he said, his tone deceptively calm. Let's cut to the chase, I replied, my heart steadying. You wanted to talk? He leaned back in his chair, his eyes searching mine. I'm not here to fight. I just want to discuss the kids.
Discuss or manipulate? I've seen you do it before, I shot back, feeling that righteous anger rise within me. Come on, Olivia, let's be reasonable. You think I'm unreasonable for wanting to keep my children safe? I replied. The sun filtered through the window, casting warm patterns on the floor as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched takeout Sarah had brought. My heart still raced from the court proceedings, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within me. Mark had been so sure of himself, so confident that he could manipulate the narrative. But I had kept my resolve, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope that I could reclaim my life. Want me to heat this up? Sarah asked, breaking the silence. She was perched on the edge of her seat, her eyes brimming with concern. I appreciated her presence more than I could express. Yeah, that would be great, I replied, my voice barely
above a whisper. As she moved to the microwave, the memory of the courtroom still loomed large in my mind. You did amazing today, she said, her voice filled with pride. You stood up for yourself. I didn't feel amazing, I said. I felt scared, like I was standing on quicksand. Sarah turned to face me. You weren't doormat Olivia anymore. You were fierce. You took control. I let out a breath, trying to process that. The moments when I have confronted Mark, calling out his lies, had felt surreal. I had acted from a place of strength, yet I hadn't expected it to feel so daunting. I never thought I'd be fighting to keep my own home, I admitted. Neither did I, she said, setting down the container of food. But you did it. You faced them both. Right, I replied, but the knot in my stomach tightened at the thought of Lauren's expression as I had exposed her betrayal. The smugness in her eyes had vanished, replaced by shock and thinly veiled anger. The glee I felt at shattering their facade was overshadowed by the weight of the reality I now had to navigate alone. As I picked at the food, Sarah's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, a frown crossing her face. It's Mark, she said quietly. Do you want me to answer? No, I said, my voice sharper than intended. I can handle it. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the affirmation I had practiced. I had every right to maintain my boundaries. All right, she said, a hint of caution in her tone. Let me know if you change your mind. I nodded, and for a moment we returned to the comfort of our takeout, the weight of the day pressing down on both of us. Just as I began to relax, the chiming of my phone sliced through the quiet. It was a text from Mark asking to meet up about the kids. I rolled my eyes. Did he honestly think we could just sit down like old friends? What does he want? Sarah asked, concern knitting her brows. He wants to talk about the kids, I said, the anger bubbling up. Like nothing has changed, like he still has a say in my life. I know it's complicated, but you can set the rules, Olivia. You don't have to agree to anything you're uncomfortable with. I smiled, the empowerment I had felt in court surging back. You're right. I'm going to tell him I need space, time to figure things out. As the evening wore on, I felt a sense of clarity settle over me. I had taken a significant step forward, and I wasn't going to let Mark dictate my next move. Later, as Sarah left for the night, I stood at the door watching her go. Thanks for everything, I called after her. Anytime, Olivia. Remember, you're not alone in this, she said, turning back momentarily. The door clicked shut behind her, and a wave of solitude washed over me. But it wasn't the bleak kind of solitude. It felt more like a cocoon. I was alone, but I was safe in my space. I had changed the locks just days prior, a small act that resonated with deeper significance. I had taken control of my home, and, by extension, my life. In the silence of my kitchen, as I leaned against the counter, I felt a burgeoning strength within me. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. I could envision a future where laughter filled my home again, children running about, their joy echoing in the walls that once felt like a prison. What I had once feared transformed into a challenge I was prepared to meet.